Bam! MC is in the house. What we got going on here? What's up, folks? My name is Justin Garcia, also known as Master Chem, and welcome to the Warrior Stream. I'm here every Wednesday at noon Eastern Standard Time, taking a topic deep dive and having a good time while doing it. If you guys are not receiving my emails, you should definitely sign up and get them. You can go to masterchemletter.com and sign up for them. Just for doing that, you will get a free program, Master the 24-Hour Cycle. It is the balance management program that I run, the one that I give to my one-on-one coaching students, people in my mastermind groups. It's what I advocate for. It's what I help them install and improve upon and evolve. And you get that program for free just for signing up to my emails at masterchemletter.com. So we've got a pretty good topic planned for today. First, let's see what we got going on here. My man Grungo Bungus. What's up? Oh, good to see you, my friend. Jesse's in the house. What's up, my man Jesse? Aaron, good to see you with the Littlins up in Canada. Right on. Good to see you. If you guys are watching, do me a favor, give me a shout. I like seeing familiar names. Feels like we're hanging out with the same crew every Wednesday. I am, my man, Big Fred. Speaking of mastermind groups, one of my crushes right there. Good to see you again. I did watch that video, by the way, Fred. Don't bring it up though, because then it's going to sidetrack me. But we'll talk later about that. Jamie, Aaron's partner in crime up in Canada. Good to see you, brother, man. Corey, what's up, brother? Good to see you. Another one of my crushes, Big Mike, up in Idaho. Good to see you, brother, man. All right, so what do we got going on? Yarn Saxa, you're getting a shout. Good to see you, Dolan. Hope all is well. Tell my man Brian I said what up. All right, so let's get into it here. So today's content, that I prepared, it's funny. Let me get this up first. I did a little bit of prep, so I'm going to get a little fancy pants with the banners at the bottom. Hopefully you'll excuse me. But today's topic is one of those topics that I find challenging to make appealing, ironically, to the people who usually need it the most. And if those of you guys that are already on my email list, you know that I'm releasing my latest power program on Friday called the Tree of Support. And what I aim to do in that program is create, as I usually do in a lot of my programs, a framework, a system to be able to look at an experience or a circumstance that you find yourself in the middle of, apply or overlay this framework on top of it, make sense of it all, where you are, where you're going, what you could do to modify the trajectory of your efforts, give you a little bit of control where sometimes people are stuck in abstraction to some extent, right? And that's what I'm aiming to do with that program. So today, I had to find a way to present content of value to the listeners that would not only make my program look like a good idea, but really at a minimum get people in contact with this metric of supporter type. Maybe it's not a metric, maybe a classification, but basically, who is supporting you? What is the support that you're relying on? What is the support that you're getting that you shouldn't rely on? And a lot of the nuances in between. So I figured a great way to sort of introduce people to this whole world of supporter types and categories was to just talk about what type of supports there actually are, right? In today's email, I put a couple of questions, to sort of just prompt people to have a little bit more interest in what's at hand here. And let me bring that up because with all the work that I've done, of course, I did not prep the email. But the questions that I asked today, more, rhetorically, were the more friends, the better, right? Wrong. Any support's better than no support, right? Wrong. Only weak people need support, right? No, wrong. What are the ways people get support? Which are productive? Which are not? That is the prompt leading into today's talk. So I want to be able to sort of get into the types of talks that we have, or excuse me, the types of support that we have, and go from there. So before I get into it, let's see. We got some more comments here. Johnny Groove, what's up, brother man? Good to see you. Tuhan Tom in the house. I like it. I like it. So let's get into it. So the first type that we're going over today, number one, encouragement and affirmation. Encouragement and affirmation. A lot of times when we are looking to get support, it is in the format of the offering or the supply of words of motivation, positivity, validation. There's a point where individuals, and this is something that I deal with pretty regularly in my coaching program. This idea, everybody's familiar with the whole imposter syndrome, right? The concept of imposter syndrome. Am I good enough? Am I capable? Why would anybody listen to me? Some sort of, this introspective process that people have that tends to erode belief in one's ability. That belief could erode to the point where movement stops. And that's when we have that internal spiral, where often people find themselves getting into depressive states, destructive states, but overall just negative states that are removing them from their mission. So the first type of support that people could experience and or offer is encouragement and affirmation. I think when somebody has confidence in what it is that they're doing, it gives them an understanding that who they are exists, that who they are is real, is valuable, is being seen and received by other people. I just the other day on the Mastermind group, I think it was yesterday morning's call, I was with my group of guys on 3 Roads, and we were talking about the effects of isolation, extreme isolation, and how there's plenty of studies that have been done. And I've spoken about this, at length in the past, studies that have been done. And sometimes, when I reference studies, like, I think it's worth mentioning, like, I don't care if something that I know to be true, that's something that I experience or have vetted in reality, does not have the support, and there goes support again, of a study. But I do think that using studies when I'm presenting an idea helps other people connect with it, right? Communication's in the catch, not the throw. So when I'm communicating, my mission is to have people understand what it is that I'm saying. I want people to pick up what I'm putting down, so to speak. So when I cite studies, it is not the end all be all of validation, but it certainly helps people sort of internalize the ideas that I'm trying to share. So that's a little sidebar. But when you have people who are in extreme isolation, and you'll see this a lot of times, a lot of the studies, are observational type studies of prisoners who are in solitary confinement. A very common occurrence is for these individuals to create personas that they can engage with. And if you guys have, read Tribalnomics, you know that in Tribalnomics, I talk about the wall of self, right? And you have an identity, right? And in the model in the book, there's a circle, right? And in it, there's a capital I, which stands for identity. And that could be an individual or a tribe, but whatever the identity is, let's say it's an individual. That wall not only lets them understand who they are, but on the other side of the wall, it also lets them know at the same moment who they are not. Who I am not, that barrier between the two is where that wall exists. Well, when you have somebody in a form of support encouraging and affirming your identity, it does give you that sort of that rebound, effect where I am going to put something out there, it's going to come back to me, and I know there's something there that it is affecting, that is interacting with it, right? So that first type of support is encouragement and affirmation. Says Wednesday talks are part of my support plan. I'm glad to be of service. I'm glad to be of service. And Tuan Thompson, studies have shown that studies are often biased. Oh man, ain't it the fucking truth? And so it's so fun. I'm glad that I gave my disclaimer. Is it a disclaimer? I guess so. A disclaimer before you had written that down, because Tuan Tom and I have had a lot of long conversations about these topics, and everybody could always find statistics or a study to support their position. Confirmation bias is a real thing. However, my only Dr. Phil quote: we train people how to treat us, right? People are trained to participate in different rituals in different ways. And specific to new information, in modern society, in the aquarium, there is nothing that helps people swallow that pill more than a bunch of studies wrapped around the delivery of the information, right? So, and I understand that it has that value, right? So, number one was encouragement and affirmation. Let's get to number two of the 7 functions of support. Resource sharing. This is probably the most overt sort of means of support that people tend to understand. It might be the sort of default definition when somebody says support. But resource sharing, it's not complex, in its design, or most people could understand. This is just like practical assistance that you're giving people. Now, the assistance could be assets, it could be financial help, money and things of that sort. But it could also be a network. It could also be an introduction to a group, access to your Rolodex, dating myself somewhat, but to your contact list. All right, let's update that. Resource sharing is an individual has acquired, accumulated, designed, built, what have you, some form of resource that has value, and they are giving you access to it. That is a form of support. I think most people will see themselves as independent and self-reliant. And I would say, just blanketly, yeah, that's a good thing to be. That's a good philosophy to espouse, one of self-reliance. I happen to believe pretty intently on an individual's self-reliance. However, we also need to understand that when we allow people to benefit us through the sharing or the support of their resources, it also is a great means by which alliances are strengthened. The man who needs nothing will find that he also needs no one. And we know that a man who is surrounded by no one, I would argue it's next to impossible to live a life well lived. He could certainly live a full hedonistic life. He could certainly find ways to seek out pleasures and areas of interest. But I guess depending on what your definition of a life well lived is, I would be comfortable saying that no man could do it alone. So there is something to be said for having the reliance on the resources of others. Where I would add value to that statement is this is where the significance of tribe starts to come in. If you don't need your tribe in any way, shape, or form, well, it really then begs the question, well, why are you there, right? And if you want to need your tribe and you want your tribe to need you, support oftentimes is the sort of mechanism that it's established, right? That need, right? Which creates the cohesion, etc. All right. So number 2 is resource sharing. John Wiley, what's up, brother man? Good to see you. Just so you guys know, you see the different logos on the bottom. I'm streaming to a couple of different platforms. So if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you're liking and subscribing and doing all that stuff. But on Facebook, make sure you're commenting and liking as well. Feel free to share it. But I'm streaming to my official YouTube page and a couple of Facebook pages. All right. So number one, we said, was encouragement and affirmation. Number two, resource sharing. Let's get into number three. Number three, accountability. The support we receive from other people could also be in the form of accountability. What is accountability? I mean, it's not a confusing, complex idea, but in this context, accountability is the assistance that we give people to sort of stay on track with their mission, to check in with them, to find out what they're up to hold people accountable with what they claim they're going to do, and in the future, checking in and assessing whether or not they are following through with that. Right. So the accountability and sort of following through with something is definitely a form of support. This can be done not only by checking in, but sometimes it's offering feedback to the individual. It's letting them know that you're watching through that feedback. It's finding a way to create more formal commitments. Are you giving your word and making an oath, offering an oath that you're going to do something? Are you getting a third party support, contract done? All these different things fall under the heading of the accountability benefit of what support is. And as I just described, there are many different ways that you can do it. On the other side of that, in my coaching and in my own life, never mind coaching, something that I've experienced myself, you want to find a way to avoid accountability, avoid people, avoid the support network of other people's feedback, right? There have been plenty of times in my life where I knew I wasn't doing the right thing. I wasn't doing the strongest thing. I wasn't doing the thing that I said I was going to do. But I didn't want to not do that. I didn't want to start doing the right thing. So what did I do? I avoided all of those individuals or groups that would hold me accountable. And the pressure that they would put on me is a form of support because it's helping me become more effective at pursuing my mission. Right? So number three, accountability. Let's get that off. I'm still figuring out these buttons, so I'll get good at this eventually. I'm good at talking, all this tech shit. You know what it is? White boy Pat had to go and get married and happy and build a family. He's got some fucking nerve. So now I got to learn how to press buttons. Aaron asks, got it. Aaron asks, what do you think of people who don't have kids, considering they're not technically supporting the continuance of their community? Oh man, this is such a great topic and a great question. Fuck it. I'm going to give it some energy here. And let me conclude this follow-up. She says, I mean, I guess sometimes it could be some kind of amazing job or something. I don't know, but chicks who were like childless and I get it. There have been many great people that I know. And by great, I mean valuable. Let me not conflate words here on concepts. Many valuable people, valuable to me, observably valuable to others, men and women that I've known that have not had children. And I'm of the mindset that in all the ways that one could be valuable where children aren't included, everybody without children is capable of creating that level of value. What I will say is where I draw the line and create or raise a point of contention is when an individual, because they've created value outside the scope of family and children specifically, when they say that their path is just as, if not more valid than the natural one being the one where you also have kids. I raise a point of contention with that because number one, I think it's selfish and self-serving. It's fairly convenient for an individual who doesn't have kids to say the way they chose is better. But aside from that, if everybody felt that way, it would be the end of the human race. So there's a couple of just like a quick, analyses that we can get, quick tests. Let's not get too complicated here with the language. just quick tests, pass or fail sort of quick assessments that you could do on somebody's position. It's like, well, I don't think women should have kids. Women should, some women aren't made for children. Some women are made to have careers. It's like, well, I don't disagree with that. I do think that some women are better off having careers. By the way, to me, all the women who are better off having careers than children are all the women who believe in philosophies and politics that I don't agree with. It's like, for me, yeah, I don't want any of those people having children. Absolutely. Which adds a new take on the whole blue-haired, trans, whatever, kids are slavery or whatever that they, people get nuts. Absolutely. Don't have any children. However, when they say that is the better way to be in general, obviously that just doesn't make sense. That's just not natural. And sometimes people, they get so, to quote my father again, they're so smart, they're stupid. You'll have individuals that will say, well, you know what, I didn't want to be, or let's say a woman, I didn't want to get married and just stay home and have kids. I went to an Ivy League school. I'm an attorney. I'm the CEO of this, multi-million-dollar company. And, oh, that's fine. Okay. That's great. Good for you. And I think people should do that. Like, do whatever you want. But there is, like, you will be outbred at some point by people who believe in none of that, by people who have absolutely no relationship with all of these metrics of value that you're espousing. It's like, no, they just like to eat, sleep, and bang their wives and have kids. And you know what? There's going to be more of them than you at some point. To ignore the natural element of this whole experience, I think is just, it ranges from foolish to just arrogant, and when I look at women who are, let me get away from the women application of this. Just look at men, because me being a man, I have kids. I have very good friends that don't have children, who are very capable, who I find great value in their friendship and their alliance. But I've never met one, or I don't know any of these individuals that I have alliances with, whose lives wouldn't be made more powerful with children. If they were to have children. And it's not something that you want to incentivize, but I'm even okay saying that even outside of the strength and structure of marriage, you're still better off having children than not. I mean, it doesn't get more sort of biologically compliant than that, right? I think there's always going to be a narrative to be constructed by somebody who wants to validate the decisions they've made, the limitations they have. It's like, sure, it's what Nietzsche, at the core of his take on, resentment, however you want to, interpret the concept in English. It really comes from, the individual who, because he can't achieve something, condemns its value, and I think it's a weak way to be. And I think when it comes down to it, people who don't have children could have an opinion on their opinion of children. But people who don't have children will never actually know what it's like to have children. So the power of having them is something that they'll never come into contact with. And again, there are people of great value who don't have children. And they've managed to do things that resonate in the lives and tribes of others that carries the weight of their reputation and their deeds beyond the cycle of their own lives. And that is honorable. It is noble. It is valuable more generally. But to the individual, there could be the individual that winds up, let's take, I don't want to get into politics, but as an example, I happened to watch that movie, Hillbilly Elegy, on J.D. Vance's upbringing. And you look at his mom, battled drugs her whole life. Eventually, I think she passed away a few years back, but had gotten clean, whatever. You look at her and the people who knew her during her life, or maybe even her parents, right? Her mother, who even had more struggles, from what I understand. It's like it's so easy to say what a wasted life they have. Yet one or two generations from them is the current vice president of the country, with great, I would say, probability, a future president of the country. So you don't know the power that you're going to be responsible for putting into the world when you have children. So not having children is, it's a choice everybody should make. I will argue against the arguments that people raise for not having children, but I'll never argue with the people. Oh, I don't want to have kids. Okay, you should have kids. Because who wants to bring kids into this world? It's so crazy. Well, actually, this has been the most surplus-laden, safe world that that's ever existed for human beings. Like I don't argue against the arguments, but your just general position of you don't want to have kids, okay. If you don't want to have kids, I don't want you to have kids. It works for me, right? So there's that. All right, what else we got? Two on Tom says, whether you have kids or not, there are people who follow your examples, your problems. You are teaching people in your community, whether you want to or not. Yeah, and that influence and the effects of that influence is always going to be there. I would say, too, and maybe this gets back to the first, of the affirmation, the support in the form of affirmation. I'd be lying if I said I don't want to make a mark in my life. Like there's a lot of things that I don't care about because I just don't think the return on investment of my resources, is worth it. Sports or even like arguing politics to some extent. Like I should say arguing about politics. There's some things that it's just not worth my time. Like I would be very happy if I, lived on 1,000 acres in a house in the middle of it. And I got to do a live show. I got to hang out with my friends. I got to lift weights and train jujitsu. I got to go on my hikes, but I don't need to be famous. I don't need to be a billionaire. I don't need to, like, there's a lot of things I don't need. But I'd be lying if I said I don't need anybody. I'd be lying if I said I don't want to make a mark on only the people that are in my tribe. I'd be lying. I wrote TRIBALNOMICS and it's on sale on Amazon and I've sold thousands of copies of it. To have, why didn't I just, print out physical copies and just hand it to people I like or mail it to people I know? Like, because there is something bigger that I want to connect to. So I think there is just a realism in wanting to make an impact, wanting to make a mark. Probably one of the most significant motivators for what I do is the modeling of behavior. And this gets to on Tom's point, to my kids, to my students, to the kids of my students. Like I want to be the guy they look to and say, well, this is what MC stood for. This is what he did that shows he believed in that. This is what he accomplished as a result. I want to have that impact, right? And I impact and influence so many people who are not my children that I think it would be ridiculous to say that, the only thing that matters is your effect on your children, right? So I think we gotta look at it, in totality, but understand that what is the most natural component of that? It's the procreative aspect of it, right? Corey says, so many people from my generation say the world is too screwed up to bring children. And for many of them, it'll soon be too late to change their mind. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, and again, very easy to write the narrative that makes you feel good about your decisions and limitations. And the idea of becoming more powerful, certainly what I advocate for is writing the narrative that might make you uncomfortable, but attacks your limitations, right? Attacks the decisions you made and sort of adds a criteria of power and strength and growth and movement to them and the accountability that goes with it, right? Corey writes, how much of it is fear or the lack of confidence in their potential to parent well enough to raise children that would be an asset to a strong community? So there's a couple of different parts to that question that we could look at. It's like, okay, is it fear? It could be fear. That in and of itself will stop people from doing something they've never done, right? So it could just be that. A lack of confidence in their potential to parent. Absolutely. That's something that a lot of people vocalize. Being I can't take care of kids. I'd rather just take care of me, and and whatever they're saying to validate what they're doing, not that they don't believe it, but whatever it is they're saying, it could be from a root cause, just a lack of confidence in their ability to parent a kid. And then raise children that would be an asset to a strong community. Well, then the presumption is they even understand what a strong community is, what a community is, and then what a strong community is, and then that they're a part of a strong community on top of it, right? So there are a whole bunch of pieces of that we could say the entire, explanation could hinge on, right? Could be the fear, could just be the lack of confidence. It could be their ignorance to what a community is, what a strong community is, their inability to find themselves in the middle of one, to even get to the point where they'd want to make it stronger, right? Could be all sorts of reasons. Tom writes, there are many people, if they're part of a tribe, that can raise kids and help raise kids basically as aunts and uncles. This is extremely valuable. If you can't have kids, find out how you can help. And, it's funny. The first time I heard this was from one of the military guys that Tom introduced me to through STG. And it was, it was always look for work, always be looking for work, always be looking for the opportunity to create value, to get something done that needs doing. Never be the person that just sits back and sort of, you've met your criteria of expectation, so you're done in some way. Like, no, that's not the way you should think. It's always looking to do more, always looking to create more value. And I would say that this is an example of applying that to this situation. Just because you don't have kids doesn't mean that you can't be a valuable asset to the kids you're connected to. I have a good friend of mine who's actually been on a podcast before. Shout out to my man, Francisco. Brilliant guy, great guy, jiu-jitsu black belt, PhD in philosophy, like big brain, fights, all this stuff. Doesn't have kids. I went to his wedding. It was just not in the cards for him. And he has a niece that he talks about all the time. I mean, I've never met his niece. How do I know about his niece? Because all he does is talk about her. And what he's done is taken all of his assets and gifts and powers, superpowers, and he's benefited her from them or through them. So yeah, always make the tribe stronger. All right, let's get back on track here. Guys, get me fired up. All right, so far, going over the 7 functions of support, we've had number 1, encouragement and affirmation. Number 2, resource sharing. Number 3, accountability. Now let's get into number 4, mentoring and guidance. This is another form of support that people experience, and it is exactly what you would think it is. It's sharing knowledge, sharing expertise. It's passing down wisdom. It's sharing strategic advice. Sometimes people are moving in a direction that because of their perspective, they can't understand what is about to happen. They can't understand, where this eventually leads. They don't understand the timeline, right? There's an idea of, delayed gratification that some people just have a hard time figuring out. Well, sometimes a mentor or a guide helps with this by adding another perspective, by maybe offering some sort of counter perspective that makes an individual, or at least prompts an individual, to question his own perspective. I've said before in many of the things I've put out there that every man should have a group, if not at least an individual, that he has given permission to call him on his bullshit. If you can fuck up in a way that you're fucking up, but none of your allies have the right, the ability to call you on your bullshit without sacrificing the alliance. Anybody could say what you need to hear, but if you're not willing to hear it, they may be sacrificing the alliance. You might have an individual who won't say it because they still want to be connected. But every man should have a group that can call them on their bullshit, and they're going to go, you know what? And it has fucking happened to me. I can't even count the times that it's happened to me, where one of my good friends came to me and said, okay, I want to give you some feedback on this that I see. And I listen, and I'll go, all right, I don't like hearing it. Right now, I got to be honest, don't agree with it, but you obviously feel a certain way about this, so much so that you brought it up to me. I'm going to meditate on it. And more often than not, they are right. And it takes me a while to realize it. But because I've given them permission through not any, codified means, it's just the nature of the relationship I have with some people, that when they say something to me, I don't just dismiss it as some rambling of some emotional idiot or something. I say, this person's capable. I trust them. They have my best interests in mind. They know this isn't comfortable to say, yet they said it anyway. I have to sit here and think about this, because I know they said it at a potential great expense, right? And when you have individuals that can give you that feedback, it is a superpower. That is the type of support that has an individual transcend his individual capabilities. You want to have, I'm the guy that wrote TRIBALNOMICS. I'm the guy that made the shirt Tribe Matters. I'm certainly not the first guy to ever talk about tribe, but I've made this the cornerstone, the absolute ground floor of my philosophy is understanding you need a group, and this is certainly one of the big ones, where they're concerned. Corey writes, great points. Oh, appreciate it. Aaron writes, the effects on your children become the effects on their friends, become the effects on their parents, tribe, etc. And that's the thing, if you guys have ever, looked at compounding interest, right? The concept of compounding interest. You obviously financial applications, but even looking at like just generational compounding interest, where I don't know if compounding interest would be the right term, but basically exponential growth. I think that's probably a better general term. And, we have 2 parents, we have 4 grandparents, we have 8 great grandparents, and how many generations you go before you're in the hundreds of thousands and the millions at some point. And it's just a level of growth that most people can't even conceptualize, right? The human brain, like I once heard it described as, we could think of a grain of sand, right? Let's say a ball, which is a grain of sand. And then we could think of maybe 10 grains of sand, maybe 20 grains. At some point, we stop thinking of a collection of individual grains of sand and we start thinking of it as just a group of sand, a bucket of sand, a sand castle's worth of sand, a beach's worth of sand, a coastline's, amount of sand, because we can no longer think of it in terms of those individuals. So there is something to be said for the effects that we put out into the world, both in our timeline and beyond, our timeline, our individual life, where that is concerned. Like some of us can't even conceive of the implications of that. We don't even understand just how powerful our actions are going to be, right? Let's get to the next one. So number 4 was mentoring and guidance. Number 5, this is a big one. This is probably on everybody's short list of what type of support individuals experience, and it's emotional support. So emotional support is that type of support where an individual receives empathy from other people. And it could be giving support or receiving support, but the empathy is transferred to an individual. What does empathy do? It validates, their emotions, their feelings. If somebody says, I'm feeling sad because my team lost the game. And they say, well, no, they said that the team won the game because even though they lost that, they get the best draft pick. I don't know why I picked this fucking analogy out of everything. But the idea of it is if somebody's feeling a certain way for a certain reason, your opinion of the reason has nothing to do with the fact that they're feeling that way. And because their reason might not be valid, it doesn't invalidate their reaction to it. The reaction's still there, the emotion's still there. So sometimes having the emotional support of an empathetic ear, or beyond that, a sympathetic ear, where somebody's feeling it with you, there is a supportive element to that, And what's the idea behind support? Well, just think of any support: scaffolding, or crutches, or any type of concept of support. It is really to help an individual continue on mission or go beyond his limited capabilities. So when you have somebody who is providing that type of emotional support, you will see that the individual who needs it is better able to process it, is better able to validate what they're feeling and move on. Another aspect of emotional support is it's the cathartic nature of emotional support. If I want to somehow get it out, I want to vent, I want to, just share a struggle, a pain, I want to complain about something, whatever it is. If there's somebody there to hear that, to be supportive emotionally, it gives me a sort of the bucket to release all of that anxiety, stress, and trauma, what have you, into. So it encourages that process along much more so, more effectively than an individual by themselves may be able to do. Right. So emotional support is a big one. We've got two more. Next one. This is number 6 of the 7 functions of support. Stability. So stability is a form of offering a reliable, steady presence, a steady identity. When I talk about the concept of respect, right? You look at the word respect, and spect, we know, like spectacle, spectator, it's seeing. We get repetitive, rewrite. It's this idea of iteratively. I don't want to say repeating, because I'm trying not to use the word read, but you understand what I'm saying. So respect, it is looking at somebody over and over again, and they are consistent. Somebody is respectable when they present themselves consistently over a broad swath of circumstances. Who are they on Monday? Who are they on Friday? Who are they when it's sunny? Who are they when it's raining? Who are they during the winter? Who are they during the summer? If the individual is consistent during all of those extreme circumstances, we could say that that individual is worthy of respect. Well, the stability that comes from respectable individuals who are giving support is just that. It allows an individual to not expect to be left alone at some point. When somebody is supportive consistently, it is an anchor that they could sort of use to orient themselves in times of turmoil. There are individuals in my school, right, the Jungle Gym, which I've had over 20 years. There have always been, certain individuals that no matter who it was, no matter what state they were in, when they came in and saw one of these individuals, they smiled and they were happy to be there. Usually it's some energy guy. Sometimes it's a joker. Sometimes it's their favorite training partner. Well, they receive a benefit from that individual being there. That is a type of support, right? And how would I categorize that according to this list that I'm sharing? I would put that under the category of the stability that they're experiencing the support through. All right, so that was number 6. So last one. Let's do a quick run through. So 7 functions of support. Number 1, we said encouragement and affirmation. Number 2, resource sharing. Number 3, accountability. Number 4, mentoring and guidance. Number 5, emotional support. Number 6, I just went over, stability. And finally, number 7, self-sacrificial support. self-sacrificial support. So here's the thing. I want to first make a distinction between sacrificial support and self-sacrificial support. Sacrificial support, I would almost call resource sharing, right? If I'm going to sacrifice something with somebody, but it does not include my identity, then it is a resource that I'm giving somebody access to, right? So that is the distinction in the terminology I decided on. So self-sacrificial support is supporting someone because there is an alignment of identities, of values, of missions. The idea of sacrifice is in you, I see me. So by giving you this resource more generally, without a expected return, the growth of that resource with the individual I've given it to, I interpret as my own growth. The easiest example of this is a parent sacrificing something of their life and who they are for their children. So long as the children flourish, they feel they've succeeded. So they've experienced their own growth and success through the disconnected growth and success of somebody they've sacrificed for. So self-sacrificial support is probably one of the strongest, one of the deepest forms of support you could receive or give, because one of the things that's up for grabs there is an individual's own well-being, an individual's own personal assets, opportunities, stability, etc. It is a very personal sacrifice that you can give somebody or somebody can give to you. One of the things about self-sacrificial support is that it is not something that is transactional in nature. It tends to be the type of support that is just going to be until maybe one of the person dies, goes away, or some sort of traumatic event changes the compatibility or overlap between the two identities, right? So those were the 7 functions of support. Should I go over them again? Why not? Really quickly. So the 7 functions of support. Number 1, encouragement and affirmation. Number 2, resource sharing. Number 3, accountability. Number 4, mentoring and guidance. Number 5, emotional support. Number 6, stability. And number 7, self-sacrificial support. So that is the list. For those of you that are not getting my emails, I have the program that's coming out on Friday called the Tree of Support, where I actually talk about the support types, right? The supporter types, what they mean, how they should be treated, what you can expect from certain individuals, what you should never expect from certain individuals, how to manage these alliances and the support that they provide you in a way that you do not wind up giving too much or requiring too little, as I put it in a recent email. I'll be announcing its sale on Friday on the email. So if you are not getting the email yet, go to masterchimletter.com. On there, I'm about to get fancy pants. Stand by. On there, you will see this page. That's right. You will see this page. So when you go to masterchimletter.com, this is the page it brings you to. You're going to put in your name and your email, put send it. Obviously, I'm never going to share, sell, or misuse your info. I absolutely hate when I get these random emails from people I know I've never fucking asked anything from. So you don't have to worry about that with me. And just for doing that, just for signing up, you will get an email back that shares with you a link to download the Master the 24-Hour Cycle program, one of my most popular programs, probably number 2 behind Strong Dad, Strong Son. But it is free for you, $47. Probably people watching right now that have paid $47 for this back in the past, but it's free just for signing up. I will only be putting the links there on the emails. So sign up for those emails if you're not getting it. All right, guys, I appreciate you all. This was a great time. We went on a couple of very valuable, I think, tangents, which I think were really good. That's why I have so much appreciation for you guys hanging out with me. I know you guys are busy, but I will be here next week so we could do it again. Again, make sure you're signing up for the emails if you're already on the emails, which most of you realistically probably already are. Stay tuned for that link for the Tree of Support on Friday. I'm very much looking forward to getting feedback on what you guys think of it. All right, guys, appreciate you. And as always, brothers and sisters, pressure to power.